Hi traders, and welcome to your final section of the psychology course. Now, this final section, section 3, has been titled Change. In this section, we're going to be bringing a complete wrap up to everything that we've done so far. So just for a brief recap, we've initially started with raising our level of awareness to the problems that traders typically face on a day-to-day basis and how those problems go on to affect our habits and our mindset. After this, we focused on what specifically impacts us as traders, and we looked at a systematic way in which we can break down these habitual actions and thoughts and how we can actually start to change them. Now, everything is great in theory, but in this final section, I want to spend time focusing on exactly how we start to encompass some of these theories, concepts, and principles and apply them to our day-to-day life. So, the first section I want to discuss is called mindful trading. Now, this approach is exactly what I would like you to adopt going forward. And I want to start by discussing how we're going to be a mindful trader. So I hope so far that you can see the importance of awareness. Being aware of our thoughts and actions just as they play out can help us defeat the habits which are stopping us from taking our trading to the next level. So there are three things that I want to discuss in terms of becoming a mindful trader. And the first one, arguably one of the most important steps, is journaling. Now, one of the best ways to become a more mindful trader is to focus on this idea of journaling. Now, before I discuss the specific impact that this will have on your trading, I want to talk about this in the general impact it has on your overall psychology. Now, studies have shown that regular journaling can have many benefits to you, but the main ones that are really going to impact you on a day-to-day basis are, firstly, it increases your awareness of perceptions and events. Secondly, it can help regulate your emotions. Thirdly, it can help reduce anxiety. And lastly, it's going to help to identify and possibly reduce the cycles of obsessive thinking that you may go through on a day-to-day basis. Now I want you to stop and think about these points for a second and now compare them to the things that we have covered throughout the entirety of the duration of this course. Now to reiterate, these points were taken from positive outcomes of just journaling on your overall psychology. So now think how closely this ties in with what we are trying to achieve as traders. I mentioned right at the very beginning, we'll be placing a huge emphasis on our levels of awareness. I mentioned specifically that emotions aren't the problem, and it's often our reaction to the emotions which are a problem for us. I mentioned the importance of identifying unhelpful trains of thought and how we can use perspective to start to change these thoughts to reduce anxiety about the future. So everything we have discussed so far can be supported and backed up by adopting a regular habit of journaling. Now, specifically for your trading, along with all the mental health benefits that we've just covered, you're going to recall that there are 4 primary fears that we tend to experience as a trader, which we discussed in section 2. Now, your journal is going to help you to overcome all of these. So throughout your week, what I want you to do, your job as a mindful trader, is to record 2 key areas. Firstly, your trade ideas and your execution, just like you would in any normal trading journal. And secondly, your emotional state throughout the life cycle of your trading week. Now, journaling these 2 things are going to help you to become more aware and accept the following things. Firstly, the market is an uncertain place. Now, the more hard data you have to support the idea that the market will essentially do whatever it wants, the more you will start to accept that there is no level of knowledge that you can acquire that will allow you to predict the market with any degree of certainty. Now, it's only when you truly accept this, you'll understand that this is a lot more about managing risk than anything else. This isn't about trying to become the best analyst. As long as you have a strategy that produces and shows you an edge over time, your only other job outside of this is simply to manage risk. And that is the purpose of everything that we are doing here in terms of trading psychology. The second thing is you need to understand, and your journal will help you to understand, that your edge does not have to work every time. Having data to show you how often, or in some cases how little your edge will actually work out as expected, it should really help cement the idea that you shouldn't put too much weight on the outcome of your next trade. Ultimately, as I mentioned, we are operating in a probabilistic environment, and that means there is no certainty in what happens in the next occurrence. So your strategy is built on the idea that even with a win rate of less than 50%, you can make money in the long run because you are focusing on risk management. Lastly, the final thing that your journal is going to be important to help you understand is that your feelings simply change every day. So as I mentioned, the focus of the journal that I want you to create as a mindful trader is actually more focused on documenting your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings throughout the life cycle of your week. Now, when you journal your emotional state, it's going to instill the idea that feelings never really stay the same. What makes you happy today can make you unhappy tomorrow. And this is important to recognize, as you will never find consistency in your trading if you're basing your trading decisions off of something which is so inconsistent. Let me say that one more time. This is important to recognize, as you will never find consistency in your trading if you're basing your trading decisions off something which is so inconsistent. So those people that tend to operate off gut feelings and what they think and feel may happen in the market, this is why they will typically end up frustrated time in and time out, because there is no consistency on the foundation for their decisions that they use when they start to trade. Now, secondly, I want you to remain aware of the cognitive biases that we have highlighted in section 1. And these are going to show you how unreliable that our minds can be. Therefore, the importance and need for our journals is even higher than we possibly think, because if our minds can be so unreliable, it shows you that we cannot make decisions based on these things. We have to make decisions and actions in our trading day that are supported by hard data, which simply doesn't lie. Our feelings and our memories will have biases, and they will affect how we perceive the future and maybe the outcome of the next trade. Finally, using the data that we have. Now, once you have a good sample of data collected on this, you're going to start to recognize that using the principles of the habit loop as to what your habitual thoughts and actions are, you can find out that actually a lot of those actions and thoughts that we identify, they're actually quite detrimental to our trading. Now, the purpose of all of this is to bring the highest level of conscious awareness to your habits, and remembering that your initial response is often coming from system 1. It is then our job to map out how we can interrupt these patterns of thoughts or behavior if we want to achieve a different outcome. I want you to understand that everything that we are working toward is designed to get you to trade in the now. That's trading in the present moment. So a powerful and effective question that you can ask yourself at any moment is, am I trading what I see, or am I trading what I think? All of the cognitive biases and all of the issues that we've discussed in how our minds can tend to hold us back from becoming successful traders, asking yourself that one question will start to dispel, and you'll start to see the separation between actually trading in the present moment or being caught up in fear of the future, or maybe being haunted by things from the past. Now, I want to wrap this section up with a quick exercise. And actually, I would argue this is quite an important exercise to do. So I would urge everyone to do this one as thorough as possible. So most of you are familiar with your trading journals that document your ideas and executed trades. For this specific exercise, I want to focus on exactly what we've been discussing, and I want to show you an example of what your emotional journal could start to look like. So I've created a very, very blank canvas here, but just covering a few different areas. Keep in mind, this is just an example, and you should create your journal how you see fit that is going to work specifically for you. But the thing I want you to pay attention into in my example is note the details of the data that I have included. So as well as referencing what trades you have taken, I have highlighted 5 key bits of data to record. And that is outside of the trade. It is the time, it's your location, it's the people that you're around, it's your emotional state, and also identifying what you were doing before the trade took place. Now, if that all sounds familiar, good, it means you've been paying attention. So those of you that remember our section on the habit loop in section 2, you'll remember that there are 5 key questions to ask yourself to find the trigger to any of your habits. Question number 1 is, where are you? And that covers your location. Question number 2 is, what time is it? That covers your time of day. Question number 3 is, who else is around? That covers people. Question number 4 is, what's your emotional state? And that's covered in this task as well. And question number 5 is, what action preceded the urge? So this basic journal starts to record all the data that you need to look back on and identify the patterns you go through throughout your trading week. Now, if this seems like a lot to do on a day-to-day basis, good. If you're serious about taking control of your psychology and becoming the successful trader that you envisioned, I want you to be mindful that this is one of the hardest jobs in the world. There is a reason that the failure rate is so high. Most people either can't work out how to improve, and the small percentage that do just won't put in the work. I can simply tell you from experience that doing this over time will give you the answers that you're looking for, and I'm hoping that you can start to see that for yourself. There is no mystery. It's a systematic method to identify your destructive patterns. And once you know this, your job is just to start getting in front of those and interrupting those patterns at the stage where they initially start to trigger. So this will most definitely be one of the most transformational exercises you can do, as it literally encompasses everything that we have spoken about throughout the duration of this course. I really want you to take your time with this, and I can assure you that mastering your mind becomes a when and not an if you choose to take this seriously. So just to give you a brief summary of what you're looking at in this exercise, you can see at 10 a.m. there was a trade taken on euro dollar, fiber, and it was a short position. You can see at that time this particular person was at work, they were with colleagues, and at the time of the trade they were stressed, and this was likely due to an argument that they had had with a client at work. Now, this data can be really important to have, because if you start to discover a pattern of either being at work, maybe being surrounded by certain people at work, feeling stressed when you're putting a trade on, or coming off the back of an argument, these can all become patterns that you can start to identify as potential reasons as to why you are making mistakes with either your execution or your management or your risk or maybe even your discipline. Once you can start to identify these patterns using an exercise just like this, it's going to allow you to proactively start to get in front of your destructive habits and actually start to make change in your trading. In our next section, we're going to be discussing routines and habits. Now, I want to take a moment to discuss what makes a good routine and how do you actually go about introducing new positive habits. So this was something that we briefly touched on when we discussed the habit loop, and we've spoken a lot about identifying our bad habits, but specifically, what do we do when we know what they are and what we want to start doing something different going forward? So this is absolutely crucial to what we do, because this is exactly how we start to take theory and apply it in real time. And there are specific things that people typically do wrong during this part of the process, which doesn't make them effective at actually changing any part of your trading. Having the knowledge from this course but not applying it is just as pointless as never actually going through the course altogether. So I want you to take this part seriously. Really take some notes here in terms of what you can start to do differently that most people will do wrong. And the first thing I want to discuss is the idea of consistency being greater than intensity. Now, before we dive into this, I want to spend some time discussing actually what not to do. So we touched on this earlier, but I want to go into this with a little bit more detail to see how this applies to your specific routines. You see, when most people want to start something new, or maybe they set themselves a New Year's resolution, for example, what does everyone do? Think about that for a moment. When you think about the goals that people tend to set, they sound probably something like this. I'm going to start meditating for 30 minutes a day, every single day. Or I'm going to hit the gym for 2 hours per day, 5 days a week. Or maybe it's, I'm going to start drinking 2 liters of water every single day. Now, what happens to the vast majority of people who adapt these goals? Mostly, and the statistics support this, they fail. Now, that's not due to bad intentions. Actually, the research suggests that most people fail to adopt the new habits because of two main reasons. Firstly, they had unrealistic goals. And secondly, they didn't keep track of their progress. Think about that for a second. Two very simple things that we can actually correct, and that is supported by data. They had unrealistic goals and they didn't keep track of their progress. So how are we going to combat both of these? Well, for starters, what most people do at the beginning is try and focus on an optimized version of their habit. What they should be focusing on is being consistent. So instead of meditating for 30 minutes a day, try 5 minutes every single day. Instead of exercising for 2 hours, start with 10 minutes every single day. Instead of drinking 2 liters of water, start with 2 glasses, but again, every single day. Now, the goal at the beginning is not about radical and drastic change. It's actually about setting a minimum threshold that's easy enough to do this task every single day. True habits, when they're really instilled, they get done whether you want to or not. Whether you wake up feeling motivated, good, bad, happy, sad, energetic, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Think about when was the last time you skipped brushing your teeth for a long period of time. Now, I'd like to hope for most people that just doesn't happen. So whilst these small, low goals won't really change your life in the short term, what they do is they make you the type of person that just shows up. Now, once your habit is truly instilled, then it's easy to improve an existing habit as you're used to showing up anyway. So I want you to focus on setting low, minimal thresholds that you know, even on your worst days, can always be completed. So maybe as a trader, that is, I must backtest for 10 minutes a day. Maybe it's, I must journal for 5 minutes a day. Or maybe it's, I must meditate for 3 minutes a day. Now, the majority of people are all planning on what to do on their perfect days. What we are going to start doing differently is focusing on what we can still achieve on our worst days. Planning for this allows you to focus on consistency, and you're going to see your routines transform in the long run. The reason this is so impactful is because everyone focuses on the wrong end of the spectrum. Everyone is focusing on the end goal, the optimized routine, and they want to get there as quick as possible. What we are trying to do, and what I want you to instill off the back of this, is understand that at the start of any new routine, no, 10 minutes a day is not going to change your life if you're exercising. 5 minutes of backtesting, or a few minutes of journaling, or 3 minutes of meditation, it's probably not going to make any impact, but it makes you the type of person that shows up time and time again. Once you are the type of person that shows up, it's much, much easier to see that routine go on long term and actually start to optimize it in the future, because you will get to a stage where it feels weird to wake up and not meditate, or wake up and not go a whole day without backtesting. Once you get to that stage, you know your habit is truly ingrained into who you are. Now, secondly, the thing that I want you to do alongside your routines and habits is to start tracking your progress on a calendar. I want you to visually mark the days off so you can see yourself making progress. Now, as you start to do something every day and you start to see all of these days being crossed off, you simply won't want to break your new routines, and over time, they will simply become part of who you are. Consistency is the key to mastery, not intensity. Please keep that in mind going forward, because that one sentence alone will transform all of your habits and routines going forward. The mind and body connection. Finally, I want to discuss the connection between the mind and the body. And I want us to understand how this can better help us to do the right thing in those critical moments. Now, identifying your patterns is one thing, and making an effective plan to start doing something different is another. But actually getting from point A to point B can be an entirely new battle altogether, especially when it comes to doing the right thing in that moment. When you're consumed by emotion, when you're fueled by anger or FOMO or whatever it is, and as it starts to creep in, it can be very difficult to do it even with the best made plans. Now, from what most people understand, the mind controls everything that happens in the body, and that is fundamentally true. However, what most people don't understand is that there is a connection, and it's a two-way process between the mind and the body. The mind does control the body, but the body can also start to influence the mind. Now, in order to demonstrate this, I want to do an exercise with you to show you just how aware the mind and body are of each other. So I want you to imagine what someone would look like who is happy and excited, specifically in terms of their physiology. Think about that for a few moments. Someone that is happy and excited. What did you think about? I'm guessing maybe you pictured someone where their chest was up, they were looking up, they were probably smiling, maybe they had a fast rate of breathing. Good. Okay, now think for a second what someone would look like if they were depressed. Again, I'll give you a few moments, but try and picture what that person would look like in terms of their physiology. How would you identify that someone is depressed just by looking at them? Now again, what did you think about in that moment? If you had to picture it on someone, what sort of characteristics do you see in somebody's physiology? Maybe they had their head down. Maybe they were breathing slowly and deeply. Maybe they had slumped shoulders. But notice how I'm picturing probably very similar things that you're picturing. Okay, final exercise. And this time I want you all to actually get involved. Now I realize this is probably going to sound a little bit silly, but go with this. I want you to stand up from your desk or your chair, wherever you're watching this. Give this a go. And I want you to pose in your best superhero pose. Arms by the waist, hand up in the air, whatever it takes. Best superhero pose. I want you to get into that position. But also, whilst you're doing that pose, I want you to try and be very sad. So strong superhero pose, but feel very sad. Do you feel that conflict in that last pose? Right? The purpose of this exercise is to show you that your mind is well aware of exactly the different emotions, not only what they feel like, but what they look like. Now, in that last exercise, I got you to stand in a way that shows confidence, but act sad or depressed. And I'm guessing most of you felt weird in doing this. And it's because your mind is telling you that the emotion simply doesn't match your body language. Now, why is this important to us? Well, we can start to utilize this connection between the mind and body to make ourselves not just aware of what we're doing internally, but what we're doing externally. So I want you to try this. The next time you feel stressed or frustrated, have a note on your desk which is going to act as a trigger to remind you to become aware of your body language. The chances are, if you're frustrated, your body language will reflect this. Now, what I want you to do is, even if you don't feel like it, I want you to change your physiology to match the type of emotion that you would like to feel on the inside. So that might mean you'll feel angry, frustrated, down. But I want you to stand up. I want you to stand tall. I want you to have your chest up. I want you to smile. I want you to have your head up, chin up. Change your breathing to the rate that you think matches a happy person. And what you're going to find by changing your physiology, your brain is going to find resistance. And it's going to open up your mind to a new path to actually start to feel how you want to feel. Now, all of this has just been, I guess, poetically put, but all we are simply doing is interrupting a pattern of behavior, right? We are using the connection between our body and our mind to interrupt how we feel. And that interruption is enough to get you to break a cycle of thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are going to be detrimental to your trading, to get you to start doing something completely different. As the saying goes, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So you must break those patterns, do something a little bit different, and you'll find amazing results off the back of this. Now, I want to finish this particular module with an exercise. So I want you to look over your notes from the previous exercise that we did, and I want you to start transforming and adopting new routines. And we're going to be focusing specifically for this exercise on the triggers. So for a new routine, what I want you to do is identify what trigger should be the start of your habit loop to get underway for your new patterns of thoughts or behavior. Now, if you're someone that wants to start meditating or backtesting more often, define some triggers to get you started. So maybe that's putting a yoga or meditation mat at the foot of your bed to step onto every morning to remind you of what needs to be done. Maybe that's going to be setting an alarm on your phone to remind you to backtest for 10 minutes at the end of your day. You simply need something to kickstart and remind you of what that habit needs to do, at what time of the day, where you want to do it, and when you want to do it. For existing routines, I want you to identify triggers to your bad habits using the 5 questions, right? So what time is it? Where are you? Who are you with? What's your emotional state? And what were you doing just before the bad habit took place? Identifying those 5 things are going to help you change existing routines in your life, because once you know the triggers that start off all those habits, you can work out if you can eliminate that trigger entirely now that you know what it is. Or you can document steps that you need to interrupt that habit and start something different. Focus on what we just discussed. Focus on the mind-body connection and create that new routine so effortlessly that it can be changed every single time going forward. For example, the next time you get stopped out of a trade and you feel frustrated, you must leave the computer and go for a 10-minute walk to detach. Maybe you must turn away from your desk and do 5 burpees or 50 press-ups. Something to physically change your body in a way that it's not used to get you to disrupt that connection between the mind and body, to open up a new path, to do something different. The most important part of all of this is that you play with these ideas and find something that works specifically for you. The hardest part of what we're doing here is that there is no generic advice that I could give you that will work for absolutely everyone. And that's what makes trading psychology somewhat difficult to conquer, because everyone is different. Not everyone suffers from the same habitual actions or thoughts or patterns. And if they did, there would be a lot more successful traders, I should say. So the important part is understanding that this is a process. This is a systematic process that will get you from point A to point B, but it may require some trial and effort from your side to figure out what actually works for you and ruling out what doesn't. And when you find that formula that works for you, using this systematic process, you're going to be able to conquer and defeat every single one of your habitual actions and thoughts that are holding you back from becoming the trader that you want to become. In our final section of this course, I want to discuss meditation. Now, let's start by talking about the benefits of meditation. Personally, meditation was a habit which I adopted that completely changed the path of my trading forever. Now, I didn't do this on purpose at the time. It was something that I wanted to try, but I started to notice the knock-on impact it was having in my trading somewhere into my journey. It took me a few months before I really started to see any positive benefits. And this is why with a lot of your routines, it's important you play the long game. You have to be consistent. You have to show up. Much like you're not going to get a six-pack by going to the gym in one day, meditation is not going to change your life overnight. Now, the reason I believe meditation is so powerful is because meditation helps to make you mindful. Now, being mindful simply means it makes you aware. Having that high level of awareness will actually create space between your thoughts and your actions. Having that space gives you time, and time gives you a choice as to what action you want to take next. Such a powerful concept. Let me run through that again. Meditation is powerful because it makes you mindful. Being mindful makes you aware. Awareness creates space between your thoughts and actions. Space gives you time, and time gives you a choice as to what action you take next. So, what is the objective of meditation? If I had to ask you, what is the purpose or the objective of meditation, what would you say? If you're someone that's never tried this before, this is usually where people often go wrong. Because most people believe it's to do with clearing your mind. Maybe it's about becoming calm or achieving some type of state. And these are all the wrong train of thoughts to start with the objective of your meditation. So, where I find most people go wrong is before they even begin the practice, because they're going in with the wrong intentions. Now, the purpose of meditation, in a way that's going to be most beneficial to you, is to simply understand that your goal is based around two things. It's based around building awareness, and with that awareness, specifically non-judgmental awareness. And there's a big difference, and we're going to discuss this. Non-judgmental awareness and letting go. These two principles are the two biggest things that you can take away from meditation. How can you practice them? And how do these two things, non-judgmental awareness and letting go, start to impact you in a positive way? Now, the practice I choose to adopt is simply spending 10 to 20 minutes at the start of my day and sitting and focusing on my breath. Naturally, during this process, my mind is going to start to wander. It's completely normal. When it does, my job is to become aware that my mind has wandered, acknowledge the thought, let it go, and come back to my breath. I will repeat this process throughout the entirety of my meditation practice. Now, there are some days that I can concentrate for long periods of time without my mind wandering. And some days I can't even last a few seconds without my mind wandering. And this is from someone that has been meditating every day for around 4 years. Now, I'm by no means a master. I am a constant student with this. But for someone that has done this for a prolonged period of time, I'm saying this to give you some reassurance that if your mind is wandering every single day, this is simply part of the practice. I want you to remember that the objective is not to clear your mind and become Zen. The objective is to become aware. Now, the more you do this, your mind is going to learn to start to do the two things that we discussed. You're going to start to become less judgmental of your thoughts and hence less emotional. And this is beneficial as the more you sit and observe your mind, you realize how much it actually wanders. You actually start to get to a stage where you recognize that we are not our thoughts or feelings. This is a powerful thing because the moment you recognize you are not your thoughts or your feelings, you actually have the ability to realize that you don't have to be them. Just because you think it and just because you feel it, it doesn't mean you have to become that certain thing. Secondly, letting go. The practice every day of letting thoughts go and bringing your mind back to the present moment starts to become a habit. Now, as a trader, it's crucial that we can start to forget the past and not live in fear of the future. So being able to let go of unhelpful thoughts from the past or the future is extremely beneficial when it comes to trading in the present moment. Now, as a final exercise, I want you to use the concepts from the habit loop to help enforce this routine. There are 3 things that I want you to have planned about your meditation practice right from the very beginning. Firstly, I want you to ensure that you have a strong trigger in place. Something that is not going to allow you to forget that you must meditate every single day. It doesn't have to be for a long period because we are focusing on the idea of consistent routines every single day, but you must do something. So it could be an alarm on your phone, it could be that mat by your bedside, you could leave a note on the top of your pillow to remind you that it must be done before the end of your day. Something that works specifically for you, but it has to start that habit loop of beginning your meditation practice. Secondly, make it as easy as possible. As I said, the practice can be just a few minutes long. You don't need 5, 10, 20, 30, an hour long every day to start to feel the positive benefits. At the start, your job is about making the routine as easy as possible so we can do this for a prolonged period of time. Once you become someone that sits down and meditates every single day, it will become much more enjoyable and you will start to see the rewards from the consistency, because over time, when it was difficult to do 2 minutes one day, it'll start to feel easy, and then you can do 5 minutes. And then when that starts to feel easy, you can do 10, and then 15, and then 30, and you work up and you build from there. The final step for this exercise is I want you to make this as rewarding as possible. You want to feel an achievement every time you did it. So that could be giving yourself a little treat. It could be crossing a day off on a calendar. It could be having one little bite of chocolate every time you do it, but I want that process to be rewarding for you. I've even worked with clients whereby simply putting money in a jar at the end of a day to represent the amount of days they have meditated was a powerful motivator for them. So again, experiment with this. Find something that works for you and adopt that. Make it part of your day-to-day routine. I want to take this moment to just say well done on completing all of the sections of this course. We've talked a fair amount about the negative aspects of thoughts and emotions and how we can change these throughout the process of this course. I want to just take a moment to reiterate at this final stage that this course is not about turning your emotions off. We are human, emotions are an amazing thing, and the last thing we want to do is to turn them off. This is usually the narrative that you hear operated online. To become a successful trader, you must operate without emotions. This is simply not true. What we are going to start doing differently is understanding initially that that thought process is flawed. What I've shared with you in this course is a way to become more aware of your thoughts and emotions which are not serving you well in your trading, break them down into habits by identifying the habit loop, and then simply changing the action you take in response to the emotion. So for example, instead of fighting yourself internally when you feel FOMO, what I want you to do is become aware of the patterns which cause FOMO. Recognize that it's an emotion which is going to play up because we are human, and then simply create a new routine to allow you to not follow through with the poor decisions that you typically make once you feel FOMO. I want you to detach from this and allow some time for your system 2 mind to kick in and lead you back on the path to do the right thing as per your strategy. I would highly encourage everyone watching this to watch this course back a few times over, especially some of the sections in which we unpack the mind and looked at our habits to really get to grips with this. Importantly, I want you to understand that this is all just building the right foundations to ensure you have the right information to start getting ahead of the curve. This is where most people fundamentally go wrong. They listen to a lot of the misinformation online, or they simply don't have the correct information to begin with. They don't have the foundations built in the right way, and it's impossible for them to get ahead of the curve. So simply having these foundations is step 1. The second part after this is you have to focus on this section in particular. You have to encompass everything that you have learned throughout this course and actually apply it, because if you fail to do that, it's just as good as not doing it whatsoever. I said it before, and I will say it again at this stage. Application of everything that we have gone through is absolutely critical. You now have all the right tools in a clear, concise manner. You can break things down in a systematic way, and I have shown you through examples how you can proactively start to get ahead of your habits and your routines and those unhelpful trains of thought which are simply holding you back as a trader. I truly hope you've gained some value from this course, and if you have any questions or feedback, I would love to hear from you. So if you are a member of the hybrid trading community, feel free to reach out to me on Discord. If you would like to contact me on Twitter, you can see my handle in the top corner, Trading in the Now. And I'm sure as you've been through the space of this course, you'll understand the purpose and the reason of why that is my Twitter handle. It is imperative that that is how we trade to have the right trading psychology going forward. It's been a pleasure to present this information for you. I hope you've gained something helpful from this, and I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. I wish you all a profitable trading career, and I will be speaking to you very soon. Take care.